Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to this live. Welcome to the revelations of this really powerful portal. Welcome to the 4 Revelation Live. I'm so happy to receive you here, and I'm so happy that you can join me, whether you are live or whether you are watching the replay. If you are here, please say hi. And also, if you're watching the replay, please say hello as well. Okay, so this is a really big day. This is, I think, by far my favorite portal of the entire year. And it is the most monumental. It feels like the most monumental, and really today's transmission, today's conversation, today's revelations are a continuation from last year's 4-4 portal. And we are at the 1 year anniversary of the return of Christ on earth. And that's a really big deal. Like, it's a really big deal for all of humanity, for all of us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means, because when people hear that, I have a lot of people coming to me and being like, what do you mean the Christ returned? Like, what do you mean? Like, did Jesus come? And there's such a powerful narrative that is connecting Jesus to every single time that I talk about Christ, and rightfully so. Of course, he is the fractal of God that we know as Christ, and he's played such a massive role for all of humanity that connecting him with each time that we hear the word Christ is to be expected. So I want to start this transmission off by really speaking into what I mean when I say the return of Christ, what I mean when I make reference to the Christ. So that feels like a really good starting point for me. So, as I said, this is a continuation from last year's portal, which was the most relevant event for all of humanity from my perspective, which was the return of Christ, which was the realignment of the divine masculine rod architecture, which I'm going to talk a lot more about as well. So when I make reference to the Christ, I am making reference to that divine aspect of God consciousness that resides within each and every one of us. And Jesus Christ is the epitome and the prime example and the most beloved example of the embodiment of Christ, of what it means to have your Christed architecture aligned and erect and online, and what it means to be an embodiment of that. So Jesus Christ is a fractal of God, is an individuated aspect of creation that has walked the anointed path in communion with God, that has shown us what it means to come back to our Genesis, what it means to come back to our rightful architecture, what it means to come back to our self as God intended us to be. When I talk about the return of Christ, I'm talking about the return of Christ on earth. So, earth herself, earth as the Sophia, earth as the divine feminine, receiving the resurrection of Christ on the 4-4 portal last year happened through the realignment of the divine masculine architecture. So the divine masculine rod architecture is the 3-6-9. And once we have the alignment of the 3, the 6, and the 9, that automatically brings online the 12. So actually the divine masculine rod architecture that exists cosmically throughout all of creation as the organic architecture of the divine masculine that lives also within each and every one of us. Once the 3, 6, and 9 come into alignment, that automatically resurrects the 12, that automatically resurrects the Christ, that automatically resurrects the Christed aspect of the divine masculine, the Christed aspect of the high masculine, the Christed aspect that is synonymous with the king. So if you've been following me, if you've been following my work, I'm always like, the high masculine is the king, is the Christ. Like the Christ is the king, is the highest expression of the divine masculine, because once he comes online, everything with regards to the divine masculine is in its organic original architecture that has the potential, that has the capacity for actualization. So this is what I meant, and this is what I mean when I say 4-4 of 2022 was the return on Christ on earth, because the earth's divine masculine architecture came into alignment. And I saw this like very vividly in my mind's eye with the 3-6-9 coming into perfect alignment and then resurrecting the 12, resurrecting the Christ, which means for each and every one of us, because our body is her body. We are her. We are her children, and our body is made up of her. So our ascension is solely dependent on her ascension and her evolution. And all of our experiences are the microcosm of her macro. Everything that we are traversing is because of her, who is never separate from him. So to give some context to what I mean when I say this was the return of Christ last year, and what I'm going to be talking about today in this transmission is a continuation of that, because actually we've been journeying with that resurrection for the entire year. We've been journeying with the return of Christ for the entire year. And today is the culminating point of that. Today is the culminating point of what has transpired last year. So it's so beautiful. It's so special, and it's something that I feel so deeply honored to receive as a part of my journey, as a part of my gnosis, as a part of my inner standing, that I get to share with you, that I get to share with the women and the men that I work with the women and the men that I journey with. So, the return of Christ from last year was the resurrection of that final rod that made an equal cross. And actually, that equal cross has been the architecture of the divine masculine rod. So the 3, the 6, the 9, and the 12, and each one of these points represents an archetype, an aspect of the divine masculine. Each one of these points represents an archetype that is alive within us, both individually and collectively. It's so beautiful that it's an equal-sided cross, and we've been journeying with this equal-sided cross because we've been journeying for the past entire 1 year with the balance of our own inner divine masculine aspects. We've been journeying with the balancing of our own inner creator. The masculine is the creator. The feminine is the creation. To put very simply, and they're not separate from one another, of course, but if we just understand this concept very simply, that the masculine is the creator and the feminine is the creation within the context of journeying with the divine masculine rod architecture for the past exact 1 year, and truly bringing that into balance will help us to understand what we've been traversing since the entire year, but very specifically, and from my own personal experience, since September of 2022. September of 2022 marks the point of our ascension, our descension, however you wish to relate to this journey of evolution and expansion and embodiment, that really marks the point for my personal experience. And my personal experience is never personal, so I know that it's the collective experience as well, of this like battle of the timelines, of this that's the best way to put it. It's like this battle of the timelines, and having so many different timelines fighting for the anchoring of their own will. I don't know about you, but if this resonates, please let me know. But since this time, since September of 2022, I've really experienced like my will almost fragmented, different aspects of my will bringing forward different timelines that have been wanting to anchor. And it's been this battle of the timelines, and today's like the culminating point of that battle. And really, in terms of my own journey, understanding what all of that was about. And I want to say, because I want to make a reference to me really understanding deeply the divine masculine rod architecture with the 3, 6, 9, 12, with the corresponding archetypes through a comparison with astrology. So I don't know if you follow astrology or are interested in it, but I was recently, especially in the days moving up to this portal, moving up to today's portal, I was really into studying the Grand Cross, because I was looking at my chart, and somehow this is the first time in my life, even though I've looked at my chart literally hundreds and thousands of times, probably this is the first time that I noticed the Grand Cross on my chart. And rightfully so, because it led me to understand so much deeper the energies that we've been moving through this entire past year since the resurrection of the Christ on earth, and more specifically, since the battling of the timelines. Like, it really helped me to understand what we were working through on a collective level and what has been unfolding for so many of us. So for those of you that don't know, the Grand Cross is exactly what it sounds like in astrology, your astrological chart. You have this like big circle with that massive cross right in the middle of it. And this is the architecture of the 36912, because the 36912, the divine masculine, really is the one that beholds and upholds and creates her. And she, from my from my innermost standing, from my inner standing, is this circle. Like, she is the all, she is the entirety of creation that is framed and upheld by him. So of course I find this symbology in my own birth chart, and through my research and understanding deeper the energetics of this grand cross within my own chart, I come to understand what has been transpiring for this entire past year with this architecture leading up to today, which it has shifted. It has shifted profoundly and immensely, and I will speak into that as well. So hello to everyone who is joining. I am having a really great hair day, and I'm so happy that you all are here. Please say hello once you come. I'm so happy to be speaking about this because it's so special and it's so meaningful. So I'm going to continue by sharing with you my own inner gnosis and my own experience of exactly like the archetypes that are in alignment with the 3, 6, 9, and 12, because that can help us to map out where we are on our journey, and that can also help us to just notice like where we can intentionally call forth and shine light on more balance and intention. So I've been speaking about the divine masculine rod architecture and the return of Christ as it relates to the 3, 6, 9, and 12. And really, what this means is like how I've mapped it. The 3 is our um, inner magician, the 6 is the warrior, the 9 is the lover, and the 12 is the king. So these are the predominant archetypes and aspects of the divine masculine architecture, of the divine masculine consciousness that resides within us, but also that just resides like as a part of nature. And another important thing to understand is that the 3, 6, 9, 12 consists of 2 grids. We have the light grid and the dark grid. So that means that we have the light masculine and we have the dark masculine. I go so deeply into this in so much of my work and so much of what I teach. And if you've been following me for a while, I've talked about the light masculine and the dark masculine for quite some time right now, because it's so important for us to connect to those different aspects, because actually, what it means to resurrect the Christ within us, what it means to resurrect the King within us, is to exalt both our light masculine and our dark masculine, is to work with both of these aspects. The simplest, the most simplest way that I can share with you right now, the light and the dark masculine. First of all, the light masculine's grid is the 6 and the 12. Okay, so like the warrior and the king, the warrior and the Christ is the light masculine, and then the dark masculine is more so on the grid of the magician and the lover. So those are the two grids. And when I was reflecting on like the simplest way to share like what the light and the dark masculines without going into like all of the detail that I go into in like my teachings and in some of my more private containers, is like the light masculine is the masculine, and then like the dark masculine is the feminine masculine. So what this means is like um the warrior and the king are more anchored in the qualities of the masculine, whereas the magician and the lover, the dark masculine, is very much connected to and in tune with his feminine. And we can just understand this by understanding like the masculine is the light and the feminine is the dark, right? Like even on the yin yang symbol, we can understand that the white part with the little black dot represents the masculine, and the dark um, part of the yin yang with the little white dot represents the feminine. And even just understanding like the feminine as the dark primordial womb and the masculine as the light, like the masculine as the sun, the masculine as the consciousness. So this is like the simplest way to explain the difference between the light masculine and the dark masculine without going into so much detail, because there's really like so much that I can talk about with regards to those two different grids of the divine masculine architecture. And both are so important. And for example, like what keeps coming to mind as an example of like the dark masculine, like I keep feeling Osho right now, because I think there's a post going around with an Osho quote where that is like really interesting to witness and to see the responses two words. But yeah, Osho, for an example, is an example of like the dark masculine, even though he's so integrated and he has both aspects of like the light and the dark. I see him as more dark because the dark masculine, or like the embodiment of the dark masculine, is really the men who are connected to their inner wisdom at a profound level. So if we understand Sophia, the divine feminine, the goddess as wisdom itself, it's like the dark masculine almost embodies that. He is extraordinarily wise, whereas the light masculine for me, with the embodiment of the masculine, is like very much more grounded and like in the body and in the provision of the earth, and like navigating the earth. Like the light masculine navigates the earthly realms, and the dark masculine navigates more so like the astral and the higher dimensional realms. So, this is to say it's so important to get to know those archetypes within ourselves so that we have an opportunity to exalt them, so that we have an opportunity to commune with them, so that we have an opportunity to integrate them. Because actually, we require both the light masculine, our inner warrior, and the dark masculine, our inner lever to exalt into the Christ, to exalt into the King. We need both of those aspects to complete the divine masculine rod architecture, to resurrect our own inner Christ, to come into communion with our own inner Christ. So once the Christ returned to the earth last year on the 4/4 portal, it was amazing to, like, for the first time, really understand this architecture, really understand these codes, really understand, like, the purpose of the Christ. And the purpose of the Christ is unification. Like, he is the great unifier. He is the one that brings all aspects of consciousness back into unity. He is unity consciousness itself. The Christ is unity consciousness itself. He is the one that unifies the Holy Mother and the Holy Father. He is the one that unifies the light and the dark. He is the one that brings everything into unity. And in fact, he is a requirement for the new earth. He is a requirement for humanity, and we must, each and every one of us, exalt our own inner Christ. The inner Christ of humanity must be exalted for us to create God's kingdom on earth, for us to create the new earth, for the new earth to come through us, for heaven on earth to come through us. So it is a requirement because he is the only one that can unify all of these different aspects. He is the only one that can bring together the heavens and the earth. And we can understand this through Jesus's journey. We can understand this through Jesus's crucifixion and his resurrection. And I've talked about this before in my teachings and maybe in some lives, but it's so beautiful. It's like his crucifixion and resurrection is the unification of heaven and earth, is the unification of the Holy Father and the Holy Mother. It's like through his crucifixion, he's going down to the Holy Mother, and then his resurrection, he's going up to the Holy Father. He's going down to the earth, and he's rising up to the heavens, and through him, the earth and the heaven is unified. Through him, the Holy Mother and the Holy Father is unified, and it is only through him that these aspects can be unified. So I love that so much. And when I first understood all of these codes, when I first understood all of these deeper meanings and messages, I was like, oh my God, like I resurrected my own inner Christ, and I'm like so connected to my own inner Christ, who, by the way, is our healed and sacred inner child. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so great because he's going to like unify all of these aspects. And actually this was an experience that I had. It was like him coming online, and then the Holy Mother unifying with the Holy Father, and then through him also Sophia unifying with the Christ. So it was like the unified family template came online through the resurrection of my own inner Christ. And I was like, oh, hallelujah, this is amazing. And then sort of the entire year since last year has been the integration and the initiation of that. Like, I very innocently and naively thought, like, oh, once we resurrect our inner Christ, once we resurrect the divine masculine rod architecture, like sort of everything comes together. But actually, like, no, we get to play a very, very active role in that integration, in that embodiment, in that actualization. And this is what we've been doing, like, kind of September of 2022, we've been experiencing this fragmentation of the timelines and this battle of the timelines and this separated will. And the entire time I was like, oh my gosh, what what is going on? What what is happening? What are we doing here? Like, why are there so many timelines? Why are there so many different wills? Why do all of these different aspects of me want different things? And I really truly only came to understand that today. I really only truly came to understand what was happening like today on this 4-4 portal. And this is why this is like my favorite portal, because it's just so um, powerful for anchoring in our understanding, our gnosis, our wisdom of the journey, of the path. It is like the culminating point of the entire past year, and it explains so much. So I'm just going to explain sort of um, the revelation that I received today. The revelation that I received, and that has helped me to step into the next stage of our ascension, of our embodiment, of our unification. When I was meditating today, the only thing I kept seeing was the divine masculine rod architecture, which is like the equal-sided cross with the 3, 6, 9, and 12, like unifying into the one. That was the vision that I was receiving. And like, I'm very visual. I see multidimensionally, and a lot of the revelations that I receive come through these visions that I have. So that was the vision that I was seeing, is like this four-sided cross merging into the one, the four merging into the one, the 3, 6, 9 merging into the 12, the all merging into the Christ, the all merging into the one. And what this has meant for our journey is that the will and the purpose of all aspects of the inner divine masculine finally unifying, because they haven't unified up until this point. They've aligned to come online. They've aligned to anchor in their own separate consciousness, their own individuated aspects, but they haven't unified. And so I'll just speak a little bit more into sort of like the purpose of each of the archetypes and why their wills haven't been unified, because each one serves a very different purpose. Each of the different archetypes has its own will, its own drive, its own duty and responsibility. And it's up to us to integrate all of these different aspects. So when I was really like reflecting on this, it was like, okay, so the archetype of our inner magician is the one who gathers all of the data in the here and the now. He is the one that can perceive everything and in the collection of all of the data that is being presented in this present moment, in this present timeline, he acts on the now. Like he is kind of the instant gratification, like that which we require, he will bestow upon us. We receive his provision sort of in like the short term vision. Like he is very here and right now. And it's like, what can I do now that is required? Like it's very much focused on the here and now, and it's action based. It's like masculine, it's action based, it's here and now through all of the data collection. That is sort of what he's focused on. The warrior, our inner warrior is the one that has the long term vision. He is the guardian and the keeper of our Dharma in this lifetime. He is the guardian and the keeper of our dreams. He is the one that holds our dreams and our highest visions and sort of our dharma as it relates to our new earth missions at the forefront of his awareness. Like he is the warrior that keeps his focus on the vision, unwavering from the vision, and all of his action is directed to that long-term vision that is like spread over our entire lifetime. So whereas like the magician is like the right here, the right now, what's happening in this timeline, how do we act in this timeline to um, bring about whatever needs to happen. It's almost like instant gratification right here, right now, short-term vision, what needs to happen now, whereas like the warrior is long-term vision, like our entire dharma, our entire dream. He is the one that is like the keeper of that, and that is taking action towards that. Okay. And then so we have our lover, and our lover is the one that like just wants to make love, that just wants to be loved, that is like that he's the lover. Like the lover just wants to make love and sort of like is if we understand the Grand Cross and astrology, he's like in opposition with the magician because the magician's like, we need to act right now for the here and now, for this timeline now. Like, what needs to happen now? Which action steps do we need to take now for this sort of like instant gratification? And he is in a square to the warrior because the warrior is like, okay, which actions do we need to take for our long-term vision, for our dream, for our life's dharma? So we can already understand kind of like what's been happening with the division of the wills through each of their purposes and why there has been conflict without them being in perfect balance. And actually, like with the Grand Cross in astrology, it's like the most powerful placement if it's in balance. And it needs to be in balance for it to be powerful. It needs to be in balance for it to have power. Otherwise, there's just so much conflict, there's so much opposition, there's so much squaring. And even the square between the warrior and the magician, it's like the magician is focused on the here and now, whereas the warrior is focused on the long term vision, the long term goal, the long term mission. So if you've been like myself, experiencing like a supreme split of the will, a supreme split in the timelines. It's like there has been so many timelines, each trying to anchor in, and they've all been so different. They've all been so different. And this is why, because our inner masculine, all of the different aspects of our inner masculine is the creator. And each aspect of our inner divine masculine was like creating his own timeline, was doing his own thing, was striving for his own purpose, was like rightfully pursuing his own purpose. And um taking the actions that he needed to fulfill his purpose, to fulfill his duty, to fulfill his responsibility. But it's been awfully, awfully challenging to navigate like this split of the will. So this is actually what's been happening. And to speak to our inner king, to our inner Christ, and the purpose of our inner Christ, of our inner king. It's like the king's purpose is to hear his people, is to hear all of his people, is to hear everything, is to receive everything, is to see everything in its highest light, in its highest like benevolence, is to see everything in its highest aspect and to take everything into consideration. It's like the king is the one who hears everyone, who sees everyone, and who takes everything into consideration and makes the final decision. And his final decision is in considerance to everyone, but also like in service to everyone, also in everyone's best interest. The king is the one who is here to build the kingdom. He is the one who is here to create the new earth. He is the one that is here to bring heaven on earth. He is the one that is here to allow heaven to flow through him. And ultimately, he needs all of these different aspects, and he has all of these different aspects, but he needs to consciously, through our own being, integrate them. And this is what has led us to this portal and this entire past 1 year. This is why it's so important to resurrect our own inner Christ. This is why it's a requirement to resurrect our own inner Christ. And I'm not saying that everyone has to, like every single human has to go on this profoundly deep journey of exalting our own inner Christ. No, the this is the path of the divine feminine Christ. This is the path of the divine feminine, she who births Christ. We as the divine feminine are the birthers of Christ, our own inner Christ. So it's a very specific journey and dharma and purpose. And once we resurrect our own inner Christ, we are doing that work to resurrect the inner Christ for all of humanity. So this is why the work is so important, because it's like our inner Christ has the final say. Our inner Christ is the one that takes into consideration the purpose of the magician, of the warrior, of the lover. He hears them, he sees them, he acknowledges them, he takes them into consideration, and he makes that final call. He makes that final decision. It's his will that is the unified will. And it's so beautiful that we traverse this journey of like seeing the separate wills and then coming to this point where the equal sided cross comes into one unified will, one unified purpose, one unified voice of the inner Christ. And so, how do we come to this point of unification? Sort of like in my innocence and my naivety, naivete, when I first began resurrecting my own inner Christ, and when that started coming online for me, like I very much understood it as like kind of like a passive process, like, oh, my inner Christ is risen and all things will happen on its own. And they kind of do. But in hindsight, I can see how there was this battle of the will, this battle of the purpose, and how all of that had to come into my conscious awareness, how it had to come out of the unconsciousness. And it was unconscious because I didn't really know which part of myself was creating all of these different timelines. Like now I know precisely and exactly, like, oh, my inner magician is creating this timeline, and my inner warrior is creating this timeline, and my inner lover is creating this timeline, and my inner king is saying, okay, I see all of these timelines, and this is what we're doing now. We're unifying it all, and we are moving more coherently on this path. But in order for that to happen, we are required to commune with all of the different aspects of our own inner divine masculine. We are required to commune and come into union with these different aspects. And we do that through our communion. We do that through our prayer. We do that through our conversation. We do that through our love and our awareness. We do that through the embodiment of the Holy Mother, who is there to commune with each and every aspect, who is there to love and be in reverence of, and be in devotion to each and every aspect. And as much as it is the Christ, the inner King, who is the one that unifies the all, who is the one that beholds the all. It's like she is the all, and this is all for her and for him and their union. So it's just so beautiful to come into the deeper ongoing layers of the Hero's Gamos journey, of the divine union journey, of the journey between him and her, of the journey between the creator and the creation, and the ongoing unification of all of these different aspects, the ongoing unification into the one, into the all. And it is such a blessing that we are here today at the 4-4 portal, where we are so supported with the energies, with the cosmic energies and the revelations of like how we can move forward in our journey by witnessing the different aspects, giving voice to the different aspects, utilizing the different aspects, being in communion with the different aspects, but ultimately like unifying their purpose and unifying their will and unifying all of the different parts into the one Christed being that is us. So I'm going to just see if there is. Okay, if there's anything else that I wrote down that I really wanted to talk about. Yeah, so understanding the different archetypes and their purpose helps us to bring them into balance. And the entire purpose of today's portal was unifying the light and the dark. And this entire past year since the resurrection of the Christ on earth has been unifying the light and the dark, and we can see that all throughout the collective. Like we can see that everywhere we look, we can see that the individuals who've been anchored on the light grids have been accessing the dark grids and have been integrating more of the dark grids. And then those of us who have been more on the dark grids have been traversing the light grids and like bringing the light grids into our being. And so it's like this weaving of the light and the dark. It's this weaving of him and her. It's this weaving of all of the different aspects and getting an understanding and like crystal clear clarity as to which aspect is creating what, as to the will of each aspect, as to the purpose of each aspect, really helps us to bring those parts into unity, into a cohesive unity where they're like working as a team. And this is really what self mastery is. Like, this is the path of the ascended master. This is the path of mastery, because our inner master, our inner Christed self, our inner being that is connected to God consciousness, that is connected to the mastery, is like navigating all of these different parts and unifying all of these different parts and having to walk the path of the all into the one. We're walking with each and every part. It's like no part gets left behind and no part gets to get left behind. So it's such a beautiful journey and precious journey of exaltation and embodiment of service and sovereignty, of homecoming to ourself again and again and again at deeper and deeper layers and levels. And there are just so many depths to this journey that are continuously being revealed to us. So just to sort of conclude with the revelatory transmission part of this live is really our inner Christ is the way. He is the life. He is the truth. He is the way. He is the one that considers the data from all of the different aspects Like he is the king, and he is the king because he does this. That's his inherent benevolence. Whereas the other parts like have their own purpose, and they can come into like a balanced communion and understanding and love for the other aspects. But it's like they're not really taking the other aspects into consideration. They have their purpose, they have their will. So the Christ is the only one who like integrates all of the other wills, integrates all of the other purposes, integrates all of the other aspects into our highest timeline, into our highest creation, into the expression of our highest self. So it's so beautiful. And this is why it's so important to cultivate this within us, to realize that the Christ is not outside of us, to realize that the Christ is within. God is within. The divine is within. Like everything is within. So in our daily prayer, in our daily meditations, connecting with this aspect, connecting with the healed and golden inner child. In one of my favorite posts that I've ever written, where I explained like what is the quality of the king, it's his healed inner child, it's his inner Christ that makes him king. So this is something that is required for all of us, and I'm sure much of humanity will be ascending without a conscious relationship to this. Maybe, I'm not sure, but if you're here, I know that you're resonating with this path, and that you're on the path, and you're on the path of masculine exaltation. You're on the path of divine feminine embodiment. You're on the path of devotion. You're on the path of ascended mastery. Okay, so this concludes the transmission. This concludes everything that I wanted to share today, everything that's been arising, everything that I've been understanding and understanding that I just very much desire to share with you all, that I got very clear instructions and directives to come on today and to speak into this, to come on today and to share this with you all, um, in the hope that it can be useful, or the hope that it illuminating something within your own journey, in the hope that it's helpful in some way, for your being, for your ascension, for your embodiment, for your actualization, for your realization, because that's what we're here for. We are here to self actualize and to create God's kingdom on earth, to create the new earth. And these portals are just so helpful on that journey, that sort of like bring everything together and tie everything um, into like this beautiful, perfect bow of understanding and wisdom that we get gifted with, that we are so privileged to receive, and that we come into prayer and pray that all beings receive this wisdom and receive this knowledge for the benefit of their ascension, and for the benefit of their enlightenment, and for the benefit of their self actualization, and for the benefit of their joy and their happiness and their divine union. So, thank you so much for joining me here. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for watching the replay. If you feel um, like fulfilled with this transmission, I'm now going to be sort of just talking about my offerings and what is moving through me right now and the ways that we can journey together. If that is something that is on your heart, if that is something that is within your desire, if that is something that is contracted or meant to happen. So, currently, I am opening my mentorship, my 3-month mentorship that is the unified feminine Christ and also the unified masculine Christ. So I'm working with both men and women for the exaltation of their own inner masculine, for the exaltation of all of the different aspects of their masculine that we talked about today, and for the integration of these aspects, really for the resurrection of the inner Christ, for the exaltation of the inner Christ, for the embodiment, for the service, for our Dharma, and for our sovereignty. Like, really, these are the pillars of my private mentorship that are the backbone and the frame for all that we do. The exaltation of the masculine, the embodiment of the feminine, for our service in the world, for our Dharma in the world, and for our sovereignty, so that we can lead humanity into the new earth, so that you have a support system for the expression of your Dharma, for the expression of your work in the world, whether that is through your business, whether it's through your business, through your business. Okay, so if you are interested and if you feel the inner guidance and the inner call, then I would so much love to connect with you wherever you are on your journey of exaltation, of embodiment, of divine union, of your Dharma, of your soul integration or your monadic integration. Our soul integration and our monadic integration is a part of our Dharma and is a requirement of our Dharma. So this is really something that I can support you in the divine union of him and her, which is the integration of the soul, which is the integration of the monad. Okay, so I am so much looking forward to connecting with you. So much looking forward to journeying with you. And so happy to be here with you now. I'm so honored for everyone that's in this group. And just so grateful that we get to walk this journey together, because we each have very specific codes that help and assist the whole, that are required for our mission here on earth. So thank you, family, for being here. I've been really, really active on my Instagram and not so much on my Facebook. So My Instagram is at Miss Sophia. If you are connected with me there, I would love to be connected with you there. I'm doing this wild challenge of 369 days of reels. So I'm like almost, I think I'm on day 49 or almost on day 50 or something like that. So it's been a journey. I'm really active there. It's kind of taking all of like my social media presence. So I would love to be connected with you there. And if you are feeling the call to more intimately connect, then please send me a DM and connect with me there. Okay, I love you, and I wish all of the revelations and the exaltations and the embodiments and the self actualizations that this portal has to offer to you. All of my love.